Hey there folks, and welcome back for another video. I'm Chris from iLather.com, and today we're going to wrap our series on how to prolong the life of your shaving gear. These are tips that I use that have served me very well, and I'm passing them on to you. Of course, if you have a routine that works well for you now, go with it. Just my opinion on these items. Also, I'm going to include some feedback, some of the feedback I got via email, and add to my previous videos. So we'll start with a brush, and I am an exclusive synthetic user. I just really love the way synthetics whip up a lather and the way they feel on my face. Just quickly, overview of what we talked about in my how to care for your brush video. First thing, don't submerge your entire brush in the water. All right, especially if you have wood. Just submerge the knot if you're going to soak it. Again, I do recommend if you have natural hair brushes like horsehair, boar, badger, you do soak it for a few minutes prior to using it. That will make the hairs more pliable and less prone to damage. Also, don't mash down too hard on your brush, regardless of what type of brush it is. All right. Put enough pressure in it to make it splay, but don't mash it down to the handle like so. That is not good for your brush, and you will run into problems. Don't swirl too vigorously with it while pushing down hard. That will cause bald spots regardless of type of knots. Also, you can get knots, in particular in horsehair brushes, knots in the actual hairs. What I like to do after the shave, as I've said before, is I will rinse this thoroughly, and that's pretty much common sense. Just put it on the tap, make sure you get all the soap out of it. A synthetic should look pretty much like that when you're finished. If you see clumping of hairs or bald spots, keep rinsing. And after I rinse, I will squeeze it. Don't pull down, just hold it, squeeze all the water out, and then I will take it on a soft towel and do this. And I would repeat this process whether it's a badger, boar, or synthetic. A synthetic will usually bounce back to shape and will look perfect every time. Badger and boar and horsehair may look a little different. If you want to, with badger and boar, you can take a comb. You can do it with synthetic too if you want, and gently being the key word, comb it out to make sure everything is nice. I used to do it when I had natural hair brushes, and when I use natural hair, I don't really need to with synthetic because it bounces back to shape. But if you have natural hair brush, easily, just gently, I should say, comb it. Don't stick the combing down here and yank it. You know, nothing good comes from that. All right, so that's our quick review of what we talked about with brush care. Now, one thing I want to mention, if you use natural hair, there is a method of deep cleaning, because what tends to happen with natural hair brushes, they pick up soap residue in the hairs, and from time to time people like to do a deep cleaning. Usually that consists of soaking them in a solution of vinegar and water. I will link a video down below that you can look at on that. I'm not going to go through that process because it's a fairly in-depth process. It's simple, but it takes a while to explain. So look for the video below. I'll find Geo Fatboy video or Mantic or someone like that video and post it below so you can check that out. So if you have natural hair, you may want to include a deep cleaning every few months. It will get your brush, it will get rid of that residue and get your brush feeling great again, or feeling almost new in a lot of cases. With synthetic, I have never had a need to perform that deep cleaning. It just doesn't tend to pick up residue. And it's one of the reasons I love synthetics. They dry quickly, and they don't pick up that residue. Also, one thing I failed to mention, let your natural hair brushes dry for at least 24 hours. All right, leave them out in the open, let them dry. All right, with that, let's move on to razors. And let's start with my method, which I use. I disassemble the razor after every single shave, take the blade out, and clean the razor. That is my recommendation to you. Some folks don't do it. I want to show you, and this sort of straddles both the razor and blade video, so we'll sort of combine it. I want to show you last couple of days after I finished my shave, and I did shake the razor out, and I disassembled it. I want to show you what was in between the top cap and the blade, just to show what's in your razor even after you finish and you shake it out. Take a look. All right, so there you see water does tend to get trapped in between you know, the blade and the top cap, and probably the blade and the base plate. That is the reason I disassemble the razor. Also, you get stubble in there, you get residue. Look, you can rinse your razor out and it will probably get most of that stuff out, but water will remain. Water and metals setting for periods of time usually don't mix very well. So my advice is to disassemble your razor, because you can get rust transfer spots from the blade to the razor, and sometimes the razor itself can rust depending on the materials. So I recommend you disassemble after every shave. Now, can you get away with 3-4 days, maybe a week? Probably, without any problems, but why risk it? If you got nice gear, it only takes a moment to take it apart. So I disassemble the razor, and as I showed you in the video, I take a soft toothbrush with a little Dawn dishwashing liquid, and I just, you know, do this number and just scrub it down a little bit, not hard, and make sure you have a soft bristle toothbrush just to remove that soap residue, whiskers, anything that might be caught. I do the same thing with the top cap. I rinse the handle and I leave it out to dry. If you leave these razors out to dry on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to have any problems with rust, unless you know, unless your bathroom has such humidity that it's ridiculous and it's salt water or something like that. Of course, you could run into problems, but generally speaking, if you treat these razors nice and you let them dry, you're not going to have any problem. One thing I failed to mention in my first video is about tightening the razor back down. You don't have to put the death tighten on these razors. Tighten it to taut, not super tight. It will hold the blade in just fine. All right, you don't have to be really, you don't have to torque it down heavy. If you do, you can, you know, put wear on those threads that you don't necessarily need. Just make it taut and it will stay. If you find that it's not staying, maybe amp it up a little bit, but don't tighten it too much. That really is not necessary. One other thing that a viewer mentioned was injector razors, and that is an entirely different animal. If you're using an injector razor like this, you pretty much need to leave the blade in until you're finished with the blade, because once you take that blade out, it's almost impossible to get it back in because it uses that injector cartridge to push it in. Also, if nothing is in the razor, it's tough to get a blade in. Those of you who have bought an injector razor before that didn't have, it usually has a blank in it to make it easy to put a blade in, and it puts some separation in there where you can actually get a blade in. When a blade is gone and that blank isn't in there, it makes it tough to get a blade in. You can get it in, but it's tough. So with injector razors, you can leave the blade in, probably should leave the blade in. However, you're going to want to make sure you get this razor as dry as you can after every use. Again, water with these blades inside a razor is not a great thing, so dry it out as much as you can, and then you can go with it. I think most of us who have bought vintage injectors before have gotten some where the blade's in it and it's either rusty or looking cruddy. So my advice is make sure you get it as clean as you can and as dry as you can. But with an injector, I don't recommend you remove the blade until you're finished with it, because it's just too difficult to get the blade out. All right, let's get to the blade. Speaking of blade, with blades, I recommend, this is just my recommendation, we're disassembling our razor every day to make sure we're cleaning it up and keeping it nice. Just give the blade a rinse. If you want to use something like alcohol, you can. Entirely up to you. You can take it in a dip of alcohol if you want to just, you know, feel better about disinfecting. But I rinse the blade down, I set it aside and let it dry, and usually I don't have any problems whatsoever. Also, be on the lookout for blades. Astra, in fact, uses it. That uses wax to hold that paper down. Sometimes it gets close to the edges. It can affect your shave. One thing I also want to go back to on safety razors is you can use Barbicide. If you want to, follow the instructions on the Barbicide. Very important. It will do a great job. Every now and then, if you just want to give your razor a deep cleaning and disinfecting, Barbicide works well, but follow the instructions on your the manufacturer's instructions. Excuse me, I'm trying to talk too fast today. On the Barbicide, and you'll be fine. Don't leave it in there too long. Usually 10 minutes is sufficient. One of the gentlemen who gave me feedback showed me the bottom of a razor manufacturer, which says leave in the razor and just I think it said rinse and sort of shake. Look, again, you saw the pictures earlier. If you leave this in there and you shake, there's still going to be moisture most likely inside there. I recommend you take it out. I realize that goes against what some manufacturers recommend, but you got to keep in mind, they probably don't want you handling this blade a lot. They want you taking it out of the wrapper, putting it in the razor, and using it until you're finished. And then you take it out and chuck it, and that sort of minimizes the possibility of you cutting yourself. It minimizes the possibility of you blunting this blade by knocking it up against something. I take it out, rinse it, be careful with it. Don't bang it against the sink or anything like that, and it will be just fine. My recommendation. Okay, let's get to the soap. We haven't talked about caring for your soap. I don't like loading inside the container. First of all, a lot of containers are too small, although that's less prominent now than it used to be. Most people are giving you a good wide mouth. Oh, this is a nice smelling soap, by the way, bad habits. So what I do is I have a cosmetic scraper here. I will scoop some of the soap out, and how much you use completely up to you. As you can see on this one, I just use one, a couple of scoops right there. Scoop it out. I transfer it to my bowl. Today I have some left over from the soap I used, and I put it in my bowl. And then you can bloom it. You can do whatever you please with the soap once it's in a separate container. You don't have to worry about it adversely affecting your soap. I'm going to say it again, folks. You can ruin soaps from getting too much water in them and not letting them dry out thoroughly. And sometimes 12 or even 24 hours is not enough drying time. I found that some of my soaps, the water actually got underneath. And even if you leave this open, it's hard to dry that out. You can turn it upside down. That might help. It may not. My recommendation is scoop the soap out, put it in a container like this, and there is no risk to the soap. You've closed it off. You've kept it free of contaminants. It's not going to be sitting out all day for things to get in it, whatever the case may be. Maybe they're working on the house and, stuff from your ceiling tile falls out. Who knows? It could be anything. Flies, debris, dust. You're keeping it entirely safe by just scooping some out and putting the cap back on it. That has been working excellent for me. When I used to load inside the soap, that did not work as well for me. So my recommendation is scoop a little bit out, use it in a separate container, and your soap will most likely last for a good long time. What do we have left? Oh, we have aftershaves left. Aftershave is really pretty simple. Keep it out of direct sunlight, keep it out of extreme temperatures, pretty much, would keep it working well. Dark closet would be nice. Again, direct light for these, it's not good for them. One other thing that I recommend that you do is pour your aftershave out of the back of the bottle, particularly when they have alcohol in them, because it wouldn't ruin this label, because this label is, I believe it's waterproof. But some of the labels aren't, and if you pour it out of the front and you get some dripping down there, it will ruin your label. I like to keep my things looking good for a couple of reasons. One, it makes me feel good when my things are in good shape. And two, if I'm going to use these things and I'm going to put them on display, the least I can do is honor these great products and the vendors by keeping them looking nice. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable. You can't help it. Things happen. But I try to keep the product looking nice. So when I show it to you, it's showing the vendor's product in the best possible light. Now, if they send you a dented tin, I'm going to show it exactly the way it comes, crappy. You know how I feel about that. I think I have covered most everything. Let me check my notes here to make sure, because I made a few notes based on your feedback. Let me make sure I've... Injector blades, D-blades, yeah. Deep cleaning brushes. Yeah, I think I got it all, folks. So thanks, everyone, for watching once again. Again, this is just a quick series wrap. I realize I've talked a lot. I probably haven't breathed as much as I should have. But I probably also sound like Darth Vader a little bit, because I still have a little bit of congestion from that cold. It has not completely left yet. This has been going like a month, so I'm hoping the weather will change soon so I can hopefully get this cough and this cold gone and get back to 100% respiratory function, I should say. Okay, I'm babbling now. So thanks once again, folks, for watching. Until next time, let's help make the entire world shape great once again.